What's up, guys? And welcome back to my channel. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Kobe, who's a guy who has over 2K on Twitter. I mean, this man's a Twitter legend in my books. And he does a podcast with Niner Wire Sam. You can see you probably seen him on Grant Cohn's channel, Sam. And Kobe's also an amazing guy who gets overlooked, but he's a passionate Niners fan who knows a lot about the Niners. So I'm glad he agreed to come on my channel. So let's just jump right into the topics. Starting off with reaction to Trey Lance signing his rookie contract.
I think we should have expected it to happen. I mean, we know over in New York that Zach Wilson hasn't signed his contract yet, but I'm pretty sure that we should expect this to happen. I mean, they not normally get it done before training camp starts with the rookies, and he's a rookie. He's not going to hold out. It's his very first contract. He's got no leverage whatsoever. No, the Niners traded 3 picks to get him, but he's going to show up. He's probably just too busy out working, and people are complaining about his sports bra and all that stuff. But he was out getting his training in, and he came in for camp today. Well, he signed his contract, at midnight yesterday, but came in and he's ready to work. And we saw he practice today. So the only surprise, I guess you would say, is that it's fully guaranteed. I don't know how common that is, but I guess maybe that speaks to the confidence that the Niners have in Trey Lance to give him obviously a fully guaranteed rookie contract. But yeah, I mean, I think we all expected it to get done. Some people were a little nervous about it because it took so long, and he's now going to be the franchise quarterback at some point, whether it be now or later. But yeah, it got done, and now we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just happy he signed his rookie contract, and I agree with you. He has no leverage with the rookie contract because it's his first contract. I mean, he can't argue or anything like that. But I'm just happy he signed his rookie contract. He's there for 4 years because you've invested 3 first-round picks for him, and I'm just glad you have him signed because that's after the Fred Warner contract. The only 2 guys that we were worrying about as Niners fans were Ambry Thomas, and he got his deal done yesterday, and we were just waiting for Trey Lance, and now we have the whole rookie class signed to deal. So I'm just happy we got it done at the end of the day, and now Trey Lance is ready for for training camp. So I'm just happy we got the deal done. Moving on, Xavier Howard yesterday posted on his Instagram that he was not happy with the Dolphins and he wanted a trade and he demanded a trade. Now the question I ask to you is, do you think the 49ers should trade for Xavier Howard?
Well, Xavier Howard is one of the best corners in the league. I think he was the interception leader last year. Should the Niners do it? I mean, if they can, absolutely. The question is, do they have what it takes to get it done? Now, obviously, with the Trey Lance trade, you're without your first-round picks for the next 2 years. You're also without your compensation third. You still have your regular third and your 2 seconds for the next 2 years. But will that be enough to get it done if other teams get involved and they're willing to give more? I think it comes down to just how many teams are interested. Obviously, we know the Niners. I mean, obviously, you got Jason Verrett, but, you can question maybe how durable he may be or how reliable he can be as far as his injury history. Emmanuel Mosley, he's on COVID list right now, but he's coming in, I guess, as the quarterback too. I mean, not quarterback too, cornerback too. But, we'll see how that goes. He's probably going to be competing for that spot with Ambry Thomas. But, I mean, Xavier Howard he's a guy who obviously one of the best in the league if you make the call and see what it costs. But at the end of the day, I feel like it could be a little bit out of the Niners price range, especially given the fact that they don't really have the picks they had before since they had to give it up to go get Trey Lance because they were unable to go get guys like Matthew Stafford. And then Deshaun Watson had his issue. And, that kind of messed up their chance of trying to get him as well. So should they try to get it done? Yes, but will they be able to get it done? Probably not. Thanks, Mangold. Hey, a lot of hard work for this room. We know the red bed sheet's got a flag in the back.
I like it.
Little parking sign. It's just a little something simple, but it's nice.
I like it. I mean, should they trade for Xavier Howard? Definitely they should trade for Xavier Howard, especially considering that if Jason Verrett gets injured, I mean, Ambry Thomas and Deommodore Lenoir, I don't think they're going to be bad, but at the end of the day, they're rookies. They haven't faced NFL competition, the elite of the elite and the best of the best. And I mean, in the NFC West, you have to go up against DK. You have to go up against DeAndre Hopkins. You have to go up against Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and those guys aren't scrubs. Those guys are pretty darn good receivers, and Diop is probably the best receiver, in my opinion, in the league. DK Metcalf is borderline top 10, top 15 in the league. So you have to go up against those guys 2 times a year, and you might even have to see them in the playoffs. And I mean, if Jason Verrett goes down, who are you gonna have as your cornerback? Because Deommodore Lenoir, Emmanuel Mosley, those guys aren't bad, but those guys aren't starting cornerbacks for your team. Those guys aren't the best starters to have on your team for cornerback. So should they trade for Xavier Howard? Yes, they definitely should trade for Xavier Howard. But is it a little bit out of their price range? Yes, I definitely think it's a little bit out of the price range, especially considering the fact that you gave up your 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance. The only picks that you have is your second rounder, and I mean, I don't think they're really gonna want Jimmy Garoppolo. There's one way that I think possibly they could get Xavier Howard and have the money to sign Xavier Howard to an extension is if you cut Jimmy Garoppolo. But Kyle Shanahan came out yesterday and he's like, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's getting the first team reps. Most likely he's the starter for week 1. So I don't think they're gonna cut Jimmy Garoppolo. Should they trade for Xavier Howard? Yes. But can they get it done? Do they have the pieces to trade for Xavier Howard? No. So I don't think they're gonna be able to trade for Xavier Howard.
Well, yeah. Well, the funny thing is they have the cap space now, even with Jim on the roster, they have the cap space to acquire Xavier Howard. It really just comes down to the picks and the compensation. What are my thoughts on sliced bread? You mean like cutting a sandwich in half, like something like that, or like, or you mean like just the loaves, like how I want my loaves cut? I don't know. I mean, it's just sliced bread, right?
Yeah, it's just sliced bread.
I mean, I guess I talk about the sandwich. Like, do I cut horizontal or diagonal? I think diagonal is probably better. For maybe like a little ham and cheese. You know what I'm saying? Maybe a little diagonal cut. So yeah, I mean, as far as sliced bread, I mean, I guess I'm talking about a sandwich cut. So yeah, diagonal, I guess.
Well, this is not technically a Niners topic, but I just wanted to throw it in here because Chandler Jones also asked for a trade. And the question I ask you is, will the Cardinals actually trade Chandler Jones? Do you think they will trade Chandler Jones? And if they do trade Chandler Jones, what teams do you think have the best shot to land him? Or do you think should trade for Chandler Jones?
I think it's a lot of teams out there that could trade for Chandler Jones. I think one team that probably should do it is possibly the Seahawks. Their best pass rusher is their safety. So I mean, obviously, that wouldn't ever happen because they won't do an in-division trade. But that's the team that would probably likely want to acquire him. But will the Cardinals actually do it? I mean, it's tough. It kind of comes out of nowhere. I think he probably will likely end up staying the entire season. Maybe in the off season we can, and maybe they'll come back up in the off season. When the season's over and everything. But as far as I kind of think, like, what teams really need some pass rush help off the top of my head? I know the Seahawks are kind of always need help.
Of course, you're not going to trade him in the division, though. I mean, like,
yeah, that's never happened in division.
That would never happen in a million years because we know how dominant Chandler Jones, especially when he's healthy on the field. I mean, the last couple of seasons, I remember he had like a couple of straight seasons where he had over like 10 sacks, and like I remember like 3 of those seasons he had like 17 sacks, 19 sacks. I mean, Chandler Jones is on the field; he's just a straight up monster. But will they trade him in the division? That's probably not likely because I don't know if they want Kyler Murray going up against Chandler Jones.
Yeah, no. I mean, in 2019 he had 19 sacks. So then he got injured last year and missed the entire season. Yep. But in his most recent full season, he was one of the sack leaders in the NFL. So he's highly underrated as a pass rusher. But the question is just, if he got traded, he would go to the AFC. The question is which AFC teams will likely want to acquire him. I'm assuming it would be a contender of some sort.
One team that comes up to mind is the Buffalo Bills. I mean, if you bring in a guy like Chandler Jones to Buffalo, I mean, that defense would go up to a whole nother level because you have the cornerbacks in Tre'Davious White, you have that safety group in Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, you have the linebackers in Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano, you have the cornerbacks. I mean, you have a pretty much stacked roster besides that defensive line. I mean, if you bring in a guy like Chandler Jones, you drafted Gregory Rousseau, you have that whole defense to be stacked. I mean, from the pass rushers all the way to the cornerbacks if you bring in a guy like Chandler Jones. So the Bills would definitely be a good fit. I feel like that's one spot where I could see him going because they have the pieces to trade. They have pieces to trade for. They have the pieces to trade for Chandler Jones. And if that's one team that should definitely, if they're willing to trade Chandler Jones, that's one team that should definitely pull the trigger and try to get Chandler Jones.
Yeah, Jay has a good one in the comments. He says the Titans as well. I think they were a team that tried to get Clowney. They got Clowney a year ago. Now obviously he went to the Browns, but yeah, maybe them as well.
Yeah,
And possibly maybe even the Chiefs would give it a call. I mean, the Chiefs are always trying to improve their rosters. So yeah, it would be some AFC contender that's likely looking for maybe a little extra help, in the pass rush. But would he get dealt? Probably not. It kind of comes out of nowhere. Obviously, he asked for it a while ago, and he never got out. And now, like, he's probably trying to put pressure on them by making it public. But it probably is going to happen this season, especially since they went and got JJ Watt and they're trying to have a really good front seven. So I think he likely lasts this season.
yep. So moving on to the next topic is, do you think Ambry Thomas will start for the 49ers in 2021?
This is a really a tough one because obviously we haven't seen him play at all yet. But one thing I will say is that for what it seems like DeMeco Ryan wants to do on defense, as far as like playing more aggressive, I'm assuming that probably means more man, possibly more press. And seeing that they drafted Ambry Thomas, the cornerback who is, a more of a press and man corner, he's kind of almost the opposite of Emmanuel Moseley. Emmanuel Moseley was more of a zone corner. It's kind of just like sitting back and then reacting to the ball, not exactly trying to stick with his man. We all remember week one. DeAndre Hopkins had his way with Emmanuel Moseley in that week one game. He had like 14 catches for 150-something yards. They went to him every single time. Emmanuel Moseley, and then obviously the injuries, and when he came back, he didn't even really play much, upon returning. So possibly, I think it will definitely be a competition at cornerback too between Thomas and Moseley. But Thomas could have the upper hand as far as just familiarity with the way that the Niners want to play in their secondary, as far as press and man, and just trying to play more man concepts and zone concepts. So yeah, I think there's a chance that Thomas, if he is a bit further along, we know he opted out last year for Michigan. He was one of the best corners in college. The year before he opted out, possibly would have been a second round pick, or if not, possibly higher if he had played the full season. So is there a chance that maybe he's a more talented guy than we think? As far as where he got drafted in the third round, is highly likely. So, I guess he'll be waiting to see, but I think there's a good shot that Thomas does overtake Emmanuel Moseley for that cornerback 2 spot, simply because he's probably more fit for what DeMeco Ryans wants to do, and that might be why they drafted him.
Yep. I think Ambry Thomas will start at least one or more game for the Niners. Like Ryan Besley said, I think he's at least start one or more plus games as a starter for the Niners. And the reason I'm saying that is Jason Verrett, he has an injury history. Kayla Williams also, he missed most of last season also. Who are you going to play at corner if those guys go down? Obviously going to be Ambry Thomas and Deommodore Lenoir. And obviously he's going to be Emmanuel Moseley if he stays healthy. But he's also on the COVID list. If I remember correctly, he's also on the COVID list. If those guys go out, you're obviously going to have to start your rookies in Ambry Thomas and Deommodore Lenoir. So I think he will start in 2021, especially with those guys' injury history. I think he will start in 2021. So
let's just hope that it doesn't happen, because Jason Verrett obviously is. He had such a great year last year, and he was most definitely obviously the best corner we have on the roster. If he goes down, just the secondary is probably the biggest question mark on the team right now, as far as just depth, because you don't really have a guy you can rely on. Moseley wasn't great last year, and then you have some young guys like Lenoir, Tim Harris, obviously Ambry Thomas we're talking about, and then obviously everyone's favorite Dante Johnson. So if Verrett goes down, as great Grant kind of cited, the great Grant. I'm right. Great Grant cited a while ago. That hey, if Verrett goes down, who's really playing at corner that you can trust? So you're hoping that Jason Verrett doesn't go down with injury, but if he does, then hopefully these guys can step up. But it's really going to be on this front seven to really get it going, because we had these same questions in the 2019 season before we saw the Niners take the field, and we were like, well, sure, you got Sherman, but who else is playing? Besides him, Kayla Williams wasn't that great at that time, and he didn't have a great camp going into that season. And then Moseley played, and it's like, who is Emmanuel Moseley? Like, who is this guy? And then the pass rush was, you had to worry about it, and the corners' jobs were a lot easier. So if the pass rush is really good this year, as it was in 2019, then maybe we don't have to worry about it too much. But obviously, with DeMeco Ryans being a new coordinator, maybe some offensive coordinators may realize that, hey, the secondary is a weakness of the Niners defense, and they go to attack some of these corners. We'll see how they handle it, but I guess the plan is that the pass rush will be back to close to 2019 form, and the secondary has a much easier job this year.
And I think personally, I feel like it kind of worries me that they're relying on the defensive line so much. I mean, with an injured Nick Bosa coming back, I mean, he hurt his ACL. He tore his ACL. He's not going to be the same Nick Bosa. I hope he's the same Nick Bosa, but I'm not necessarily relying on him being the same Nick Bosa. D Ford is, I mean, D Ford. Hopefully, he plays some games. And one key loss that we had last year even is DeForest Buckner. Like, if you expect the same D line from 2019 that people like, if you expect from now in 2021, I mean, DeForest Buckner was a huge key piece of our defensive line in 2019, and since he's not there anymore, I mean, that puts all the pressure on an injured Nick Bosa with the coming off a torn ACL. That's putting all the pressure on him, and that cornerback position, I mean, like you said, it kind of scares me in a way because you don't have those guys like Jason Verrett. He's gonna miss some games. We all know that. Hopefully, he does stay healthy, but Jason Verrett's gonna miss some games. He has an injury history. Kayla Williams, he legit missed. He was fine during training camp last season also, but then he missed most of the season last year. He only played in I think like week 14, week 15. Started playing at the end of the season. I mean, Emmanuel Mosley also, he's on the COVID list. So the fact that the Niners are relying so much on the defensive line and not addressing that cornerback position at least a little bit, I mean, that kind of worries me because you've got to address that cornerback position, especially like I said before, in the division that you're playing in. There's stacked receivers in the division you're playing in. I remember the first game of the season. I remember the first game of the season. DeAndre Hopkins put up 140 yards on our corner with Richard Sherman. I mean, he put up 140 yards on our corner. DK Metcalf, when we went to Seattle last year, Russell Wilson just had that connection, and DK Metcalf, we just couldn't stop DK Metcalf. And I mean, if our starting quarterbacks, outside of Jason Brett, none of those guys are really top 10, top 15 cornerbacks in the league. And that also depends if Jason Brett can stay healthy. So the fact that they're relying on that defensive line so much and not addressing that cornerback position, that kind of scares me a little bit.
I think it's probably a philosophy thing. That's the way they want to dominate games in the trenches. We saw they went and they signed Samson Ebukam. We saw they went and they got Maurice Hurst and went and got Zach Kerr to kind of help on that defensive line. So it's just kind of like a philosophy thing. They want to dominate in the trenches, but I guess just the hope is that those guys stay healthy, and then make jobs easier for the guys behind them. But it kind of sucks. We have to think about it that way. It's like, let's just hope we stay healthy.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, this year with more regular routines because last year the pandemic and all the different rules for the way COVID and all that good stuff. Hopefully, this year with a more normalcy, they have a better training camp as far as staying healthy. I know Shanahan talked about it in his presser, I think yesterday, that they really changed up the way they did training camp as far as practice goes. They just wanted to get guys to week one. They didn't, put on the heavy workload. They didn't work so much on body conditioning. They just wanted to really let guys rest and get to week one. And then we know once they got to week one and the first 4 weeks, and it's basically over because the whole team got decimated by injuries. But with a year with we had OTAs this year. I know they got cut short because of reasons, but with the OTAs having those and the rookie mini camp and then having training camp and having a more regular schedule, hopefully that helps guys stay in shape. I know Debo and the team knows. They know that they got banged up too much last year. So we heard Debo talk about it today. He said he worked on flexibility. He did yoga with Kendrick Bourne and them in the off season. So they're working on it. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, football is football. I mean, sports is sports. We saw the NBA playoffs. If people watch basketball, so many players got taken out because of the injury. It's just part of the game. But hopefully this time around, the Niners are able to stay healthy. And if they're able to stay healthy, then the defense will likely be fine. But the issue becomes if there's not a lot of depth in the cornerback position. So if one of those guys go down, mainly Verrett, and that's when you kind of start to worry.
Yep. And all with this Niners team is all based off if they can stay healthy. Like, I mean, the roster is like, if you look at our roster, offense, defense, our roster is a pretty solid roster that has a lot of talent everywhere. It all just depends on if we can stay healthy. And as Niners fans, like, I mean, last year I expected us to make the playoffs last year. We didn't, right? So as Niners fans, we hold at high expectations where our roster is talented. We should be able to make the playoffs, but it all just bases off if we can stay healthy. So I just hope this year we can stay healthy. That's just what I hope, and I think that's what all Niners fans hope, that we can stay healthy. And I mean, the thing about the Debo Samuel whole thing about the Debo Samuel, I mean, as a Niners fan, it personally aches me because we could have had the opportunity to draft a guy like DK Metcalf and AJ Brown, and a guy like Terry
Waste time on AJ
McLaurin,
Brown.
and then we have Debo Samuel. I mean, like Debo Samuel, I don't hate on. I'm not a hater of Debo Samuel. I don't dislike Debo Samuel as a person, but he just can't stay on the field. And when you look at what those guys like DK and AJ Brown are doing, putting up 1,000-yard seasons, some people even call them top 10 receivers, and I'm just like we could have had the opportunity to draft these guys, and we didn't have to spend a first round pick on them. They were second round, third round guys, and instead you drafted a guy like Debo Samuel, who's an injury prone receiver, who has all the talent in the world, but he's just an injury prone receiver. And I mean, it kind of just irks me as a Niners fan always when we play against Seattle or we play against Tennessee, and I'm just like, DK's torching us, and I'm just like, we could have had them, Kyle. Like, I mean, like we could have had him. He could have done the same thing for our team, but instead you passed up on him. Like, I don't get it. Why would you pass up on him just to draft a guy that you like more? Like, you don't do that. You don't put your heart into business decisions, especially as a head coach of a team. You just don't do that.
And we might see it again with. I mean, I know Ayuk has been really good, but obviously, I think Niner fans are going to be comparing whoever Ayuk does to whoever CeeDee Lamb does, because the Niners could have had, a CeeDee Lamb or a Jerry Jeudy or anyone like that. So Ayuk is going to be compared. Justin Jefferson obviously had one of the best rookie seasons we've seen from a wide receiver. Another guy Niners could have had at that 13 spot when they had that pick. So, I mean, it's always like just hindsight kind of thing. But going into the draft, I loved AJ Brown. I was hoping he would be the guy, and then they ended up taking Debo, which wasn't terrible. Another guy I liked, but I liked AJ Brown more. And we see so far in his career, AJ Brown is a lot, more accomplished and a lot better than Debo is right now. But I mean, we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, like another guy that might happen with Ayuk, and we know Ayuk, seems really good. He had another really good day at camp today, but he'll be tied to the likes of CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy and those guys. And we see in the media they're getting more attention than Ayuk is right now. So
yeah,
we'll see
and
how
I
that
mean,
plays out too.
Ayuk had a great rookie season last year, but the reason he doesn't get the hype in that what he did last year is because there's guys like CeeDee Lamb, there is guys like Justin Jefferson who balled out last year. So of course he won't get that recognition because there's receivers that play like CeeDee Lamb is an amazing receiver and he definitely put up better stats, but Ayuk just doesn't get the recognition that he deserves because of those guys like CD and Justin Jefferson. I mean, but he's still an amazing receiver, and I love Brandon Ayuk, but he just doesn't get the recognition because of those guys that are doing it have better stats than him. Well, moving on to the next topic, this is another rookie cornerback. Do you think Diamador Lenore will start in 2021?
So Lenore is more of the slot guy. He's more the guy who I think people are looking forward to possibly taking Kayla Williams' spot if he ends up, leaving in the offseason next year. We know he signed the 1-year deal. I don't think he can play his way into a starting spot. I think he'll play if Williams went out with injury. I forget his name, but we had a guy who filled in last year when Kayla Williams got injured I think it was Jamar Taylor. That's the name. Jamar Taylor filled in. So I think Lenore will probably be the Jamar Taylor of the secondary. He'll be the backup nickel corner, and then he'll be a special teamer most likely. But yeah, slot guy. He's a good tackler. He kind of is like a Kayla Williams clone in a way. Obviously, we'll see how that plays out in the future. We'll see in the preseason when he plays how he performs. But he'll start if there's injury issues. I think that's how it is for him. I don't think he can play his way into a starting position. But if Williams is out for whatever reason, then I think he will play.
Mm-hmm. Diamador Lenore, I also think he's gonna play if Kayla Williams gets injured, but I don't think, like you said, I don't think he's gonna go and be a starter and get into the starting job. I just don't think so. I just think if Kayla Williams gets injured, which he pretty much missed most of last year, but when he plays, he's not a bad cornerback. I like Kayla Williams when he plays because I think he's an amazing corner when he plays. Just that he just can't stay on the field. Same thing with most of the other players on our team. They're studs. He just can't stay on the field. So if Kayla Williams gets injured, I think Diamador Lenore will start in 2021. It all depends if Kayla Williams gets injured. So I agree with you on that one. Moving on to the next topic. is, if you don't know already, you probably do know, is the Cardinals added a lot of pieces this offseason. A lot of big names. Guys like JJ Watt, AJ Green, Malcolm Butler. So in your opinion, are the Cardinals the biggest threat to the 49ers this year?
Um, I think it's the Rams are the biggest threat, but for the Cardinals, we kind of a lot of Niner fans kind of like just shrugged them off in a way. It's not like we really destroy the Cardinals every time we play them. I mean, we saw in 2019 we were really good in 2019. We had two really close games that we easily could have lost, and that was when Kyler Murray was a rookie. And then we saw that they destroyed us in the first game when we were our healthiest in 2020. And then the second game, Kyler Murray had that injury. He had a bad shoulder throughout the second half of that season. You can tell because he had to carry the offense really for the Cardinals because of the lack of creativity from Cliff Kingsbury, which is why everyone underrates the Cardinals because of Cliff Kingsbury. But the Cardinals always play as tough. It's not exactly a team that we can just kind of glance over, and it's really just all divisional games. You can't really gloss over any of them. But I think the Cardinals they improved a lot. They got another receiver. I'm forgetting his name, but
AJ Green.
yeah, they brought in AJ Green. He was the rookie receiver. They brought in too, the short and shifty guy. I know why I forgot his name.
Rondell Moore.
Yeah, Rondell Moore. Yep. So they improved the offense a little bit. They brought in James Conner. They brought in JJ Watt, who I know he's on the backside of his career, but he's still better than what they had before. And obviously, if Chandler Jones sticks around, that defense is likely going to be pretty solid. And then we know that Kyler Murray gives us headaches. And with DeMeco Ryans being a rookie defensive coordinator, we know how much Robert Saleh struggled at first containing mobile quarterbacks. And we see that again with DeMeco Ryans, and he's kind of new to the whole thing. And maybe they don't really have a good plan in place to kind of keep those guys in the pocket and keep them contained. I know most teams struggle with that, but you got to really be good to keep those guys under wraps. And just Kyler Murray now in his third year, we saw they got off that hot start last year. We'll see if they can kind of keep that going. Really, I think the biggest thing is Cliff Kingsbury. It's just, will he evolve as a head coach? And obviously, the hire it's still a confusing one. The fact that he was, fired as a coach in college and he was offensive coordinator. Then they just all of a sudden they just like, hey, you know what? Here's his NFL coaching job. Here, have it. And it's just like okay, that's out of nowhere. I think he's still in over his head.
I don't even get what
I mean.
I don't. The one thing about the Cliff. Sorry to interrupt you. But the one thing about that Cliff Kingsbury sign, I'm like, what did he do to deserve to get a head coaching job? Like, he did nothing. Absolutely nothing to get a head coaching job.
It was a result of the Sean McVay thing. Everyone was trying to get the next bright offensive mind because of Sean McVay coming into the Rams and really just like getting the most out of Jared Goff and really hoping the team get to a Super Bowl. But, I mean, Cliff Kingsbury isn't Sean McVay. There's only one Sean McVay. So, yeah, that hire is still – but – yeah, the Cardinals, I mean, they can definitely be a threat. I think almost every team's a threat to the Niners in our division. None of those games are really easy. Russell Wilson always gives us problems. No matter how good our team is or how bad our team is, Russell Wilson always gives us problems. The Rams have Matthew Stafford now. Sean McVay is one of the league's best play callers, one of the brightest offensive minds in football. And he's just got a much better quarterback than what he had. We know that Kyle Shanahan liked Matt Stafford a lot. So we know if Kyle Shanahan likes him a lot, then he must really be, a legit player. And obviously, if anyone listens to this, we all know that Matt Stafford is a guy who was very underrated. Even still now as a Ram, people will see this year how good Stafford is. But yeah, I mean, really, I think they're all big threats, but I think the biggest threat is going to be the Rams just because their roster is probably the best of the other three teams that are in the division. And obviously, they got a much better quarterback, and they have possibly the second best coach in the division.
Yep. I agree with you. The Cardinals aren't the biggest threats in the Niners. And I mean, in 2019, some of those games that were tight, but we still beat the Cardinals. But I feel like even with their additions of AJ Green, Zayvon Collins, Isaiah Simmons is going to get better this year. Malcolm Butler, I mean, they kind of have the same problem, in my opinion, that the Niners have. But they just don't have cornerbacks. They really don't. Their cornerback group is whack. And Malcolm Butler, he's not a bad cornerback, but he isn't this special player that he was. He made one play in the Super Bowl, and people hype him up for that one play that he made. But still, he hasn't shown me anything where I'm like, hey, Malcolm Butler is actually a really, really good cornerback. The Cardinals aren't the biggest threat because we could beat them in 2019 with Jimmy Garoppolo. and a healthy roster. So the Cardinals aren't the threat. And even last year, I mean, we beat them with CJ Beathard, and they couldn't even score 10 points on us. The Cardinals didn't
Yeah,
even score 10 points on us. And I get that you could add the factor they didn't have JJ Watt and AJ Green, but I mean, like, we could beat you guys with a backup quarterback. And I mean, with a healthy roster, with a Nick Bosa coming back, I still think we could beat you, even with your additions of JJ Watt and those guys. So I think the Cardinals aren't the biggest threat to the Niners. And I personally agree with you. The Rams are the biggest threat to the Niners. And I mean, we've beaten the Rams so many times. I think we're like 4-0 against the Rams the last few years. But Jared Goff was their quarterback. And I mean, Matthew Stafford is a way better quarterback than Jared Goff is and ever will be, in my opinion. I mean, Matthew Stafford is a top 10 quarterback in most people's books. And with Matthew Stafford, I mean, yeah, you could say he did. Like Jimmy Ward, if you watch the Jimmy Ward interview with Grant Cohn, he said Matthew Stafford is the same old quarterback that he was in Detroit. I mean, outside of Calvin Johnson, please tell me one Hall of Fame or Pro Bowl receiver that he had outside of Calvin Johnson. Please name me any good running backs that he had outside of any good running backs, any good offensive line, any good defensive players. He had nothing in Detroit. Absolutely nothing. I mean, nobody can win in Detroit. I mean, nobody can win in Detroit. What Detroit has, I don't expect nobody to win in Detroit.
they're gonna
And
be
he's
terrible
coming
this
to it.
year.
They're terrible. Let's see how good Jared Goff does in Detroit. Please. People are saying, oh, you traded away a guy who took you to the Super Bowl. Look at the weapons that the Rams have. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. They have a pretty darn good offensive line. You have Aaron Donald, who's the most feared defensive player on any team. Kyle Shanahan even came out and said one time last year when we were playing them, you don't game plan around the defense when you play the Rams. You game plan around Aaron Donald. That's how good Aaron Donald is. All you're trying to do is neutralize Aaron Donald. Whatever you can do, you try to neutralize Aaron Donald because Aaron Donald's like game changer. So you have a guy like Aaron Donald. You have a guy in Jalen Ramsey who's a lockdown corner who locks down guys like DeAndre Hopkins and DK Metcalf. So, I mean, the Rams with Matthew Stafford, they're only going to get better. And Jared Goff had all of that to work with last year, and he couldn't. He took you to the playoffs, but he couldn't take you to the Super Bowl again with all that stuff. Matthew Stafford's a way better quarterback. He has an arm. He has a cannon. He could throw it like 70 yards down the field. And I mean, the Rams are the biggest threat to the Niners, especially because Sean McVay's excuse. Sean McVay's excuse was that he had Jared Goff under center. Now with Matthew Stafford in center, the Rams are gonna be scary, and I think they're gonna be the biggest threat to the Niners this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just obviously us as Niners fans, the same way we felt about Garoppolo is the same way they felt about Goff.
Yeah,
They're like Goff is holding us back. We can be. They had the number one defense last year, and they couldn't
yeah,
do anything with it because Goff was terrible. I mean, going into before they traded Goff, they said he was going to compete with John Walford for the starting job in training camp going into the year. Like John Walford, really, that's who you're going to have to compete with to get the starting job back. Really, Jared Goff. So yeah, I mean, it was obvious that Sean McVay was fed up, and the reason he even got benched in that playoff game wasn't really because of his thumbs, it's because he wasn't playing well. So McVay was like, "Let me give John Walford a shot," and then he ended up getting hurt, and he had to put Jared Goff in. But yeah, Jared Goff was the reason that team, obviously was held back, and now with Matthew Stafford in there, now obviously for the Rams, the biggest thing is their depth. They're not very deep. They're really top heavy, but if they stay healthy, they're one of the best teams in the league. So yeah, they're by far the biggest threat to the Niners this year.
they're definitely. And another guy on that Rams team that's underrated is this guy named Darius Williams, who's also on the other side of Jalen Ramsey. And
Yes.
Darius Williams, he's a good cornerback. He is a really, really good cornerback, and people don't talk about him. But let's look at this year. The Browns signed two of the Rams cornerbacks and one safety. I think John Johnson, some other guys that they took from the Rams. Because the Rams, I don't know what, but they can develop cornerbacks so well. The Rams outside Jalen Ramsey, they have talent. So Darius Williams on the other side is a really, really good cornerback. So you have to worry about both of those sides of the field. You have a guy like Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, and Cam Akers injured. But if Cam Akers come back next year healthy, that entire roster is stacked. And if that team can stay healthy, that team is easily the biggest threat to the Niners, especially over the Cardinals, because Sean McVay can do a lot with Matthew Stafford in center. A lot. So The Niners fans, you better watch out for the Rams because I think the Rams are gonna be scary this year. Moving on to the next topic is will Eric Armstead have a bounce back season?
So obviously, we know Eric Armstead's best season came next to probably the best defensive line or one of the best defensive lines in NFL history. You know, obviously he's playing alongside DeForest Buckner, D Ford, and Nick Bosa, and we saw obviously without that and with him being the best defensive lineman on the line, Seahawks hadn't. Yeah, I mean the Seahawks are always tough. And we know that Pete Carroll and they had discourse with the offensive coordinator. They weren't really agreeing with how the offense is being ran. So yeah, then bringing in a new guy, possibly helping out the offense. But yeah, I mean the Seahawks are always going to be a team that's up there as long as Russell Wilson is there. I was hoping he got traded.
If Russ is there, they're always winning 10+ games and making it to the playoffs. I don't care what anybody says. With Russ being there, I don't care who Russ has, but they're 100% always making the playoffs. And I don't care what anybody says. They just haven't been shown the last couple of years. They're just making the playoffs.
I mean, it's the whole division is tough overall. Yeah. I wish we had the NFC East. Why can't we play the Cowboys, the Eagles, and
bro? We would. Giants? I don't care what anybody said. We would dominate in that division. I mean, we would easily be 8-0. I think 8-0, right? 8-0 if we played all those division teams, especially with a healthy roster. I mean, I wish they played in the NFC East. The NFC West is the toughest division because all 4 teams have the chance of making the playoffs. And some people say the AFC North with the Steelers and the Browns and the Ravens, but the Bengals aren't in playoff potential. The Bengals have a lot of work to do. So yeah, and Ben Roethlisberger is also getting old. So the only division that has all 4 teams actually in playoff contention is the NFC West. So
it's easily I mean, as of right now, the Niners still have the worst quarterback in the division.
Yeah,
I mean that's not. I mean, obviously we got to see Lance first, but as of right now, they still have the worst quarterback in the division. So, I mean, yeah, but back to Armstead. With D Ford possibly back and Nick Bosa back, I think he should see a better year than last year. Will it be 2019 good? Probably not. I think 2019 might be his ceiling. He might not hit that again. But if we get 6.5, maybe 7 sacks for him, some tackles for loss and just some good run defense for him, I think he'll be good this year. I think he'll be good, but he's not going to do what Buckner could have done. He's not going to be able to replicate what he did in 2019. But I don't think he needs to. Obviously, Bosa is the main guy.
Yep.
And yeah, we know the money that Armstead makes. I'm sure. I mean, I would have rather seen them try to trade Armstead and then keep Buckner. I think we all kind of wish that they would have done that.
You brought up that situation, and every time anybody brings up that situation, it pisses me off because I'm like, for $4 extra million, I mean $4 extra million, you could have gotten a guy who's top 3 defensive tackle in the league. Behind Aaron Donald, I think he's better than Chris Jones, DeForest Buckner, in my opinion. And he's right below Aaron Donald in defensive tackle. Eric Armstead isn't even top 15 in his position. I don't care what anybody says. Eric Armstead isn't even top 15 in his position. And you're paying him $80 million for what? 3 sacks a season? 3 sacks a season. You're paying him $80 million for 3 sacks a season. Please. Somebody explain that decision.
I mean, I think they might have overthought it a little bit. I think they wanted to really make the most. I think they were getting offered more for Buckner, obviously, because he's one of the best defensive tackles in the league. So they thought about flipping him, and then obviously they got Kinlaw and Ayuk out of it in a way. But at the same time, I mean, I would have rather just had Buckner. You could have still got Ayuk in the draft, even if you didn't get Kinlaw. Now, if Kinlaw turns into, a superstar, then we look at it differently. But will Kinlaw reach anywhere near where Buckner is? We have no idea. And if we had to bet, I would say probably not. But
nobody's talking about the Bengals, Aaron. I mean,
we're not talking about the Bengals, man. No one cares about them this year.
The Bengals are a dumpster fire of a team. I know we were talking about them earlier, but nobody cares about the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals are just straight up doo-doo butter. But
nice unis though. I kind of like the unis.
I do like the unis.
Kind of clean. Kind of clean.
No, it's a better unis in those division is the Browns unis that they just.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
people
God.
was hating. I don't know why. I don't think those were good. I don't know why people was hating. It was like, oh, it's like a knockoff Niners unit. Like, bro, it looks good. Okay, stop hating. It looks good,
bro. But I'm gonna bounce back season. Now, my turn to answer this question. It all depends on what you what you base off what's a bounce back season, right? Is he gonna have a 10+ sack season? Is he gonna make the Pro Bowl? Not likely. Is
No,
he gonna give you
probably
more
not.
sacks than he had last year? Is he gonna do better? 6.5 sacks, 7 sacks? Probably. I wouldn't even be mad if he had 5 sacks, honestly, because Eric Armstead with a healthy Nick Bosa, I definitely think he's gonna do better. But it all depends on what you determine as a bounce back season. Is he gonna have an impressive season? No. But I definitely think he's gonna have a bounce back season in the sense where he's definitely gonna put up more sacks. He's definitely gonna do better than he did last year because of help with the Nick Bosa coming back, with a guy like Samson Ebukam. Hopefully D Ford plays some games. So he's definitely gonna have a better season than he had last year. But he's not gonna have this elite Pro Bowl caliber season, 10+ sacks. No, he's not gonna do what he did in 2019. If people believe that, that's just not gonna happen for multiple reasons, especially with the DeForest Buckner loss. In 2019, Nick Bosa didn't have a torn ACL coming off a torn ACL. So I just don't see him having a 10+ sack season. But is he gonna have a better season than he had last year? Definitely. But he's just
Yeah,
still
I think this the best way to put it is he's gonna have a better year than he had last year, but he's not gonna have a season worth his money.
yeah.
I think
And
because
he
somebody getting paid 20 million is supposed to be like a Pro Bowler, and he won't be that.
not even a Pro Bowler. When you play a defensive lineman in general, when you pay him $80+ million, he's getting paid like he's a game changer. He's getting paid. You give $80 million to a guy like TJ Watt or like a guy like Myles Garrett. You no way in hell give $80 million to Eric Armstead. You just don't. And you can't even get rid of that contract because no GM in the right mind wants Eric Armstead. I mean, who wants to take on that contract for the level of productivity that Eric Armstead gives you? So
So Armstead is as of right now per his salary at defensive end is a top 10 defensive end, and he's getting paid ninth most. And I think you can probably be like, hey, maybe he's not top 10, but hey, well, I mean, we'll see. But there's some guys on that list that's like, yeah, there's I think I'd take him over Eric Armstead, and they're below him in salary. So
what's up, Mr. Croissant? Yeah, well, I don't think he's gonna have the best season, but I just hope. But I just don't get why they paid him that much money, right? Like, you pay that much money to a game changer. He's not. He's really not. He gives you 3 sacks a season by himself. Why give
yeah,
him $80 million?
last year showed you that he's not a game changer. He's a guy who plays
Yeah,
great next to other great players, but he can't be just the main guy. He's like,
yeah.
I guess you can say the people who like to hate on LeBron, he's like LeBron. He can't do it without help. So that's how you want to describe it. But
I don't
you
know if this
know,
is I don't know if this is the best comparison, but he kind of reminds me of like a Kevin Love where he does do stuff with like a LeBron James on his team, with a Kyrie
yeah.
Irving on his team, but he's not like that one guy that's gonna do it all by himself. He's only able to do it with that help on his team.
I mean, you see the Cavs without Kyrie and LeBron, they're terrible.
No, they're trash, straight up trash.
Terrible.
There's trash. Well, moving on to the last topic of the day is, will Debo Samuel have a bounce back season?
Yes. I think he's obviously the most versatile offensive weapon for Kyle Shanahan. Obviously, we know, what kind of. I think Ayuk is like the true receiver, but obviously because of Debo's run after the catch ability, and obviously we heard Debo saying in his interview saying he wants to be more than just a run after the catch guy. We have to wait and see kind of how that thing goes. But I think he'll definitely have a bounce back season because I think he'll stay healthier this season. We saw we heard him talk about the work he put in the offseason to try to stay healthier, working on his lower body because he acknowledged that that's where he gets injured a lot in his lower body, with the foot, the hamstring, all that good stuff. So yeah, I think he bounces back. We saw how he played against the Rams. He's still capable of putting up big games where he had that 11 catch, 137-yard, receiving game against the Rams, helped win that. So, then obviously alongside Ayuk and then with Kittle back and then Muhammad Sanu, apparently he sounded like he's back and performing pretty well. So
We all heard what Jimmy G said in the press
yeah,
conference. I mean,
yeah, he's
I don't want to
looking pretty
repeat
effing good
it.
out there.
Yeah,
Pretty
no,
effing
he
good.
looked pretty effing good out there. So that if Jimmy Garoppolo's saying that, I mean, there's definitely something about There's some
Yeah,
definitely saying about Mohamed Sanu that Jimmy Garoppolo saying that, especially that you have to use the profanity because
yeah,
Jimmy Garoppolo probably gonna get
that man was
fined
out
for
there just
that.
popping off. He was
Yeah,
in there popping
he
off.
he
He's
he
loose.
he didn't even care. He tried to show Kyle Shannon that I don't just have the body language, okay? So,
Yeah, I
but
mean, yeah, we saw Jimmy we ain't seen before. That man's out there. I mean, hey, he's got to be great this year. I mean, because
he
the rest of
does.
his career is predicated off of what he does
Yeah.
this year. If he gets beat out in camp by Trey Lance, he's not starting nowhere else. Like that's it.
He's
So
gonna be a
he's
career backup. He just
yeah, he'll
straight
be
up.
a career backup.
I mean, if he
Yeah,
does
so
not prove himself this year, and I mean, even if I was a GM of a team, right? I just wouldn't trade for Jimmy Garoppolo because most of Jimmy Garoppolo's success, the one season that he had success, was he had so much talent around him. I mean, he had so much talent around him. Nick Bosa, DeForest Buckner, D Ford, Richard Sherman, who played most of the season, who was a really good Richard Sherman, who looked like prime Richard Sherman that he did in Seattle. He had a healthy Jaskowski chart, healthy Jimmy Ward. He had pieces everywhere, right? So when you take that factor out of it, Jimmy Garoppolo, even in the NFC Championship game, he threw 7 passes in the NFC Championship game. Name me one other quarterback that threw less than 10 passes in the NFC Championship game to make it to the Super Bowl. Like none of it. No other quarterback throws less than 10 passes to make in the NFC Championship game, rather less than win it, right? No quarterback does that. So Jimmy Garoppolo had a lot of help in that 2019 season. And if Jimmy Garoppolo does not show that he can be a good quarterback this year, he's definitely not going to be on the Niners after this year, in my opinion. After next year in 2022, I don't think he's going to be on the Niners, but he definitely has to show that he could be a better quarterback, be a good quarterback, and be a healthy quarterback. Because even if he gets injured, nobody's going to give him a chance because he's been injured so many times that I don't know any other GM that's going to give him a chance if he's injured, right? So he definitely has to stay healthy, and he has to play at a high elite level for him to get another chance anywhere else as a starter, right? He's definitely going to be a
yeah,
backup, but as a starter, he definitely has to play at a high elite level. But moving on to the Debo topic, right? Will Debo have a bounce back season? It's hard. This is a hard question because if Jimmy Garoppolo's in the center, Debo Samuel's basically gonna run jet sweeps most of the game. He's that gadget receiver that Kyle Shanahan has. He's not really used as a Brandon Ayuk where he's gonna be used as a true pass catcher. He's usually behind the backfield running those jet sweeps or running those quick slants. He's doing those things, right? If he can stay healthy, yeah, but if he can't stay healthy, then definitely not. Will he have a bounce back season? That's a tough question. I'm on the no train. Now, the reason I'm on the no train is because Kyle Shanahan already said that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get most of the first team reps. He's going to be a starter. And with Jimmy Garoppolo under center, we already saw what Debo does with that offense with Jimmy Garoppolo under center. He's running those jet sweeps. He's not doing anything else. He's running those jet sweeps. 90% of his snaps with Jimmy Garoppolo under center is the jet sweeps. We've seen it in 2020. We've seen it in 2019. Most of his snaps with Jimmy Garoppolo under center is those jet sweeps. And I just don't see Debo Samuel staying healthy. I would be happy, and it would be lucky if if Debo Samuel can play 12 games, at least 12 games. But do you see Debo Samuel playing 12 games? No, I don't think so. I hope so, but it's not likely in my opinion. So I don't think Debo Samuel will have a bounce back season. And even if he plays full 17 games, Ayuk and George Kittle, those guys are mouths to feed. Ayuk is a mouse to feed. George Kittle's a mouse to feed. And most of the plays Debo Samuel's running in the backfield, even when he gets those plays where he's actually lining up as a receiver, I don't know if he's gonna do. I don't know if he's gonna have that 1,000-yard season, or he'll have 800, 900-yard plus season. So I just don't see it. I don't think he's gonna have a bounce back season. I'm on the opposite train. First time we disagreed all day on one thing. I mean, it kind of gotta
I
happen at
mean,
the end.
hey, I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, okay, so I guess I'll say this. Obviously, it's hard to kind of like map out how many games Debo will play because he played a full season his rookie year, but then his second year he missed a lot of time. So then we know back to South Carolina, he missed a lot of time in South Carolina as well. I think he only had like one full season played.
Yeah, he had
So,
one. Yeah.
so I mean, obviously, you kind of worry about his health, but obviously, we know he worked on it a bit this offseason. As far as his usage, obviously with Ayuk now in the mix, because Debo's rookie year was towards the end of the season, he was the best receiver on the team, at least for Jimmy Garoppolo, because obviously Jimmy's a guy who loves the short to intermediate routes, and that's where Debo was at his best. if Trey Lance is the one who plays the majority of the season, I think you see a much bigger output from Deebo Samuel than if Jimmy Garoppolo plays. Simply
Mm-hmm.
because of the fact that the ball doesn't go downfield more. When we saw today in practice, Trey Lance had the 2 deep balls. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have the deep ball, you know? So just from that standpoint, we know that Lance is the guy who's going to air it out. Jimmy Garoppolo likes to keep it a little safer with the short to intermediate. I guess bounce back would be, I guess, could he return to what he was his rookie year?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, with Jimmy Garoppolo plays a full season healthy, I think he can definitely. It might be a little lesser because he won't be the main guy he's
Imagine
going
if
to
Jimmy G
versus
stays healthy. It's all if Debo
yeah
stays healthy, right? Can Debo stay on the field? I mean,
yeah
Debo is
Debo's got to
working
stay on the
on the
field.
same stuff of staying healthy in the 2020 offseason, and then he doesn't even like get injured like George Kittle gets injured, or he's fighting for those extra yards and he hurts his foot or something like that. Debo got injured working out by himself, and he breaks his foot by himself. No DB covering him. He breaks his foot by himself. So I just think if Debo can stay healthy, right? That's all. If Debo can stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I hate trying to predict whether a guy's gonna get hurt or not because it's just a rough thing because you hope they all stay healthy. Um, but yeah, like Debo, he got hurt on non-contact stuff. He hurt his foot in the offseason, and then he pulled his hamstring twice during the season. So if it's that easy for him to get off the field, there's a good chance he's going to miss about 4 or 5 games. But if he can at least play, let's say 12 or more games, I think he'll put up enough numbers to be considered a bounce back season. So I think he definitely can. But once again, with Niners, is the big thing. Can he stay healthy? But if he stays the majority healthy, then yeah, I think he'll have a bounce back season. I just think his usage is special. Obviously, just the versatility, the way they can use him as either a decoy, just because of how often they move him around. The reverses. He even played some running back last year at times, and obviously how dependable he is as a yak, yak king, yak guy, whatever they call him. I forget, the yak boys, something like that. But yeah, just on slants and digs, he's kind of like almost kind of like a mini Michael Thomas in that way. Just a guy you just run a little slant. He's a big body receiver. You kind of box a quarterback out and just kind of get the pass. But I mean, I think Debo is a little more talented than people give him credit for. I mean, you remember the Seahawks game in Week 17, and he had Shaquille Griffin lost for most of that game. There were some times back when All 22 was available via NFL Game Pass that Samuel got open deep down the field, and Jimmy just either wouldn't throw it or couldn't hit him. So. Yeah, I think Debo is capable of more, but once again, it's about staying healthy. But I think Debo is a lot more talented than people give him credit for. If he's healthy, he should definitely have a bounce back season.
I think he's more talented than Ayuk, but it's all can he stay healthy, and it's all how the 49ers can use him, right? And if they use him as a true wide receiver, and if he can stay healthy, then he'll definitely have a bounce back season. But you gotta take those 2 factors into consideration if he can stay healthy and how the 49ers will use him this upcoming season. So it's kind of hard to predict, but I just don't think so, especially with his injury history in college where he only played 1 full season, and even last year he missed most of the games on in the off season with no DBs in front of him. He breaks his foot. So I hope he can have a bounce back season, but do I think he'll have a bounce back season? No, in my opinion. Well, do you have anything else to say before we wrap up the show?
No, man, just thanks for having me on, man. You're doing some good stuff here. You're up and coming, bro. Might be better than me, low key. But hey, man, I love what you're doing, bro.
I appreciate that. Well, I have Kobe's link of his Twitter in the description. If you're not following Kobe on Twitter, he already has way more Twitter followers than I do. He has like over 2K on Twitter.
Yeah, we
But
gotta
if
pump
you're
you up,
not,
bro. We
if
gotta
you're
pump you up a
not,
little bit.
if you're not following Kobe on Twitter, go follow him on Twitter, and his YouTube channel is also in the description. If you're not subscribed to Kobe on YouTube, go subscribe to him on Twitter. He does shows with Niner Wire Sam and him. They have a podcast, Niner Talk Podcast. I remember correctly, that's the title, right? Niner Talk Podcast.
Talking Niners, yeah, they're backwards, but it's close enough.
Talking Niners Podcast. So go subscribe to Kobe's channel if you haven't already. He posts amazing content on his YouTube, also at Niner Wire Sam. That wraps up our show. Thank you guys for watching. Please hit the subscribe button if you want more of my content. And that basically wraps up our show. I'll see you later. Peace.